Hello, everyone. John Doyle from OptixEQ, and today I thought I'd do a little bit of a video analysis of the graded stakes races from Belmont Park. It's Saturday, May 14th. It's a good card, and I thought some of these races, when I start looking at the plots, may indicate some of the favorites might be a tad vulnerable in some of these races, so it'd be worth kind of looking at. I'm going to start with the race 5, and that's the Runhappy. It's a grade 3 stakes for 4-year-olds and up. It's a sprint distance. And we're looking at the plot here, both the standard and surface and distance look really similar. So that's why it's got that nice green plot fit. Now the contention says flame, and you can see that there's a bunch of horses above the par line. Okay, remember what the par line is. For people that are new to OptixEQ, you see this. It's hard to see because it's right on this x-axis, but there's like a dotted line going across. And what that is that's where horses at this kind of class level you would expect to run. So you see horses above that. And the number 1 is a horse that's above that. He's an E in this race, right? So that means he needs the lead, wants the lead, and that's what he does. So there's a horse that it looks like likes to go to the front, set a fast pace, and just kind of run them off their feet, so to speak. So that's what he does, but you can see that he's a circle. And again, people that are new to optics, what does the circle and square mean? Circle means relative to the other horses in the race, this horse is going to be slowing down somewhat. The bigger the circle, the slower he goes versus the other horses, vice versa with the square. So our biggest circle is the 1 in this race. Our biggest square is the 2, who's way in quadrant 4. So what does that mean? That means this horse is going to be way behind the field early. Both the first call, which is the x-axis, and the second call, which is the y-axis. So he's all the way down in quadrant 4. But typically what we see, these horses usually, it's hard to win from way back, especially in any kind of North American racing. But when we see this in optics plot, contention high, speed rating high, we give these horses a better chance than we normally would. So drafted as a horse we want to look at just from a plot perspective. So we got a bunch of horses above the par line. The 1 looks like the speed of the speed, but he has a tendency to come back to the field. He's 5-2. Some of these other horses are, the drafted is 3-1. And the other horse that, might be coming from off the pace is the 5. And the reason why he just kind of catches our eye too is this is his last race. It was at Tampa in a stakes race, non-graded stakes race, and the horse had kicked back in the race. And there was a projection for this horse to improve. Now, also suggestion for the horse to go on the turf and stretch out. But it's just another thing that this horse had to in his way is this kickback thing. So especially at Tampa, Florida, some of those tracks could be really hard on horses with dirt, kind of streams of dirt coming back at them. They're typically drier, deeper tracks, and so it's something to watch out for. So let's go to the grid, and you can see that the 1 is a horse that likes to go to the front, does his best racing when he's alone or he gets some kind of tactics. The thing I don't got crazy about him is his recent form. It looked like this horse might have peaked well, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, maybe he didn't peak, but it just seems like his recent races don't fit with that 101. Since that 101 he rode at Pimlico. Again, Pimlico's probably Maryland racing's a tier 1 or 2 down from a New York racing, so it's hard to kind of compare. But this horse is capable of running 101, gets kind of loose on the lead. But we see the kind of the contention in this race, so he may not get loose. The horse that he's going to have to deal with is the 6. So I think just at 5-2, this horse is a horse you want to 7-year-old. He's even that Tom Fool. I mean, we gave it a C+ because the number come back so slow. And if you look at the extended comment, sometimes you got to really pay attention to the extended comment. It said, no excuse here, no match for winner in the stretch after having it all his own way early in the race. So it's a horse at 5-2. I want to kind of look against now. Caramouche, you're going to see that his name is like on every horse in this race. So he kind of selected this horse with others. So that was interesting. Now, it'll be interesting. This is the other actress horse in the race, the number 6, who Caramouche ran last time. Looks like this horse ran a 101 and 100. Looked like kind of was in peak form. Could be looking for a regression, especially with the rise in class here. But there's a horse that, again, likes to be forwardly placed. So it'd be interesting to see if stablemates actually would Let's see if the same owner here, by the way. See if this horse maybe. No, no, no. Okay, so there might be some contention with the stablemates in this race. So another reason not to like the 1 and the 6. The number 2 drafted, that was a horse we were saying coming from off the pace, was wide in the Carter. That's a grade 1. So this horse is getting major class relief in this race. Another 8-year-old, doesn't win a lot. Hasn't once really, well, won the toboggan. But before that, it was a maiden special weight. But again, this horse, if you look at it, this is really interesting. If you look at his form, first of all, his race shapes have all been either slow, very slow, or average. And the 2 averages, one of them he won. He doesn't get pace flow. He's going to get pace flow today. He's going to get a pace to run at. Caramouche again was on this horse last time, but getting Ortiz is no shake here. He just looks like a horse that's a legitimate contender. He's gonna have to get things to break his way a little bit, but there looks like enough pace to set up his closing style, and it's all going to be about the price. He is an 8-year-old, so that's kind of interesting. The other horse that I thought from off the pace was quite interesting was the 5 officiating. This is the one that we talked about having the kickback in the last race. But if you go back to the Tom Fool, this horse destroyed the field and got a kind of a similar, very fast race shape in that race. He gets back to that race, and really he doesn't normally run a bad race. I mean, the only time he's run bad races is, well, this one was on synthetic going long, which is not his game. And then, a couple of these other horse races that were, distance races. I think he's a closing sprinter. Doesn't have to, he's not a horse that's going to have to be that far back. Maybe gets first run on draft, on the drafted. So think off the pace here, 5 and 2. The 4 was the other off the pace horse, but the only thing with the 4 was his last race. Now he was in traffic, but just didn't show enough. I mean, it just was a soft race. You see, Carouche again was on that horse, gets a shift to Pratt, who's no slouch, obviously, for people who follow California racing. But I just think, based on that last race, he needs a lot more improvement. So I'm going to kind of stick with the off-pace runners here in the Runhappy, the 2 and the 5. Okay, so that was the Runhappy. Going to switch now to the Man of War. Man of War. Let's see. I think it's the 7th or the 8th. Maybe it's the 8th. Yeah. So this is a grade 1 on the grass, and this is interesting because when you look at the plot, you got to be a little bit careful here, right? I mean, it's green pond, speed rating's low and all the rest. And so you might want to consider the 6 and the 4. But typically when a race gets between 11 furlongs and up, I really start shifting. I look at the plot more for horses that can finish. So that would be like the 1, 2, and the 5 in this case. Then I'm looking for kind of like how is the race going to kind of lay out, because typically these races, they're kind of bunched up. No speed's going crazy. You're looking for horses that can finish, because they're all going to kind of run around as a pack, and then someone's going to, needs to separate late. So it's all about tactics and closing and class. What do I mean by class? Well, I'm looking for horses that have competed at the level. I always talk about like the 4 pillars of racing. There's the class, speed, form, and pace. And when I look at races like this, pace and speed figures, they kind of go down a notch on my belt, and I really kind of focus more on class and also form, right? So those are the 2 things I really kind of focus on. So when I look at this race, I thought number 3 is going to be the favorite, and rightfully so. This is a horse that won the Breeders' Cup race. Yabir, I think that's how you say this name, ran a huge race that day. Now he's come back since. That was as a 3-year-old, and he's come back since. He ran in the Dubai race, finished a good second in that race, and then he lost, but he finished second in the next race at Newmarket. But he was at 0.25 to 1. So kind of interesting that this horse lost that race. Now, the other thing about this horse, watch the turf course, because he wants firm ground. You can see his bad races come on softer ground. I don't think he's going to get it soft at New York today, even if with some rain. So wouldn't worry about it too much, but just something to watch just in case there's some rain comes through and really softens up the ground. Now, here's the concern about this horse a little bit. He runs 140 days. He's in Dubai, then ships to the UK, runs there, and now 15 days later, he's in New York. This trainer is one of the best, Appleby. But still, I don't know. He just might be not ready for peak performance, and he might not need one versus this field because you talk about class. This horse obviously is a grade 1 winner in the States, but also a grade 2 winner in Europe, which is almost even more important. It's just a different level of racing there. So when you're looking at these races, you want to be looking at these G numbers and see how these horses perform. And you want to really upgrade horses that have been running in Europe that have done well in graded stakes races. This horse fits the class. The form issue is the question with the kind of short turnaround and the traveling. Okay, so that's that with that horse. Now, the second choice, and this horse is going to get a ton of money too, is Guffo. And this horse has shown lots of different dimensions on how he can win a race, and he's won a lot. He's grade 1, another horse that's grade 1 in the US. But just look at its plot. It's okay on surface and distance, not standard, not so much. And is that really an advantage? Does he really have an advantage over the 1 and the 5 from a plot perspective? I don't know. Let's look at the 1 and 5. Oh, by the way, I asked a rhetorical question, but the answer is really no. He really does that when you look at the plot. Now you look at this horse. He came in Easter. He came in an allowance race. There's a French horse. Finished 10th in the grade 1 in France on soft ground. But maybe this horse didn't like soft ground in Europe, and that's why they shipped him here. But they saw enough of this horse that finished 4th in his 3rd race, grade 3. France is a different game. It's tough. I mean, long jump, you can't get better than that from a quality and tier perspective for grass racing. So this horse ran 10th in the grade 1 after the good race that he ran in grade 3. And then after that, these are all races that kind of like, well, this one was 9.5. Of course, was running at 8.5, 8.8 mile races. And he's running okay. Came to New York, and this one race was good enough to kind of like put him on the plot where he looks good, right? So, I know Guffo's got this grade 1 stuff in the States, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. This horse looks like a horse that maybe could be on the upswing. Did the typical Euro thing, it's kind of usually the first time they come to the States, they have trouble with the gait. They're just not accustomed to it. So let's say he doesn't have that issue. He put in a good close. Love to see Pratt take this mount from Motion. And Motion also has the other horse. So I give this horse a definitely consideration. Highland Chief is the other one he has. Looks like a similar form, but this horse actually competed in grade 1s and did even better than the 1. McCarthy ends up on this horse. He did not run as well in his US debut than the 1. But in this race, when I look at the 4 and 6, I don't think those horses are going to carry the day in terms of speed. And you'll look, and if you look, I just think those are horses that are vulnerable. So I was kind of again looking for horses that can finish 1, 2, and 5 are the horses. I just think the 2 might be a little vulnerable. 3, the obvious favorite. So 1 and 5 are horses you might want to consider using around and play here as an opposition to number 2 Guffo in race 8, the Man O' War. I'm going to go shift over to race number 9, and that's the Peter Pan. And this race usually kind of is a good preview into sometimes the Belmont. A lot of horses have come out of this race that have been over the years and have won the Belmont out of this race. So it's a race to look for, and maybe as a prep for the Belmont. Very interesting race from a pace perspective. The 1 looks like the speed of the speed. It doesn't, we see how everyone's kind of below the par line in this case. Don't expect a lot of speed in this race. And the 1 could be a horse that can kind of maybe set the tempo. But we're going to get into him from a class perspective in a second. The 6, Western River, is got a square, but deep closer. Not enough. There's enough pace in this race to set it up for him. So let's kind of go to the grid and check the field out for the Peter Pan. Grade 3, like I said, horses that come to mind: Conquistador Cielo. Well, no, he ran in the Met Mile before his Belmont, but I guess the last one, I'm trying to think, it was Tonalist. It's the last horse that either won or was in the Peter Pan and came back and won the Belmont. Okay, let's go through. Let's look at Set Sail. Now, look at the trainer on this horse, Richard Mandella. Okay, Richard Mandella does not put horses that he doesn't think could win in races. It's just the way he is. This horse ran a huge B+ out of his maiden win. So maybe Mandella thinks he has something here, and he could be speed of the speed in this race. My only concern is, well, one of my concerns is that Rosario's on this horse. That's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, Rosario. But Pratt usually kind of does first call for Mandella when they were in California. So Pratt's not on this horse. So that's kind of interesting. So this horse may have some ability, may not have enough seasoning experience maybe to win this field. But when you look at this field, it's littered with a lot of horses coming out of maiden races. So don't go to sleep on this horse. My guess is they're going to put this horse on the lead and hope for the best. His price low is short. See where he ends up. But to me, 7-2 is not value on this horse, but more like 5-1 would be interesting for me. The horse I think is the horse to beat is We the People. And this horse was highly regarded going into the Arkansas Derby and just kind of didn't do anything. So I want you to take a look at this horse when he gets on the track, because he gets really warm. And you can see that, and I wouldn't hold too much against him. Just make sure he's not too worked up. If you look at the extended comments of the Arkansas Derby, heavily washed out. He just didn't look ready for this race. You can see the note: likely rush for this race and not recovered or ready for the test class and distance. Okay, so he came back in 21 days for this race after running a huge race and an optional claimer. Now that field was a little weak and whatever, but this horse showed ability in his first 2 races. So maybe he did come back too soon. He's going to come back here now, 42 days, get a little bit more rest. Notice that Pratt sticks with this horse for a really solid, good trainer, kind of in the mid, I guess the Midway. I don't know what Kentucky and that area is concerned anymore. Mid-Atlantic, I don't know. But anyway, this Brissett guy is a good trainer. So I'm expecting this horse a big improvement, probably the horse to beat in this race. If you look how he plots close up in quadrant 1. We said that doesn't look like a lot of speed. Maybe he tracks the 1 around the track, and maybe those 2 horses are going to be tough to kind of run down. The other horse that I guess is going to take some money will be the 5 Golden Glider. This is a horse that comes out of the Bluegrass. Ran a okay race in the Bluegrass. I'm just wondering if, and he has there's no knocks on this horse, right? No, all green and black and stuff. So I'm just wondering, he kind of ran in his 80s. He peaked. Now he's coming back in this race. Don't knock anyone liking his horse. I'm wondering if he gets overbet a little bit. And it'd be really interesting to see where the 1 ends up in terms of price, because like this horse has been competing graded stakes company. He's 4-1 and the 1 is 7-2. So it'll be interesting to see how that all washes out. He plots fine, the 5, horse that'll come off the pace. Just not sure. No, I'm just, he's fine. I just kind of prefer the 1 and the 4 better. And then the other horse we talked about a little bit from a deep closing perspective was the 6. Ran a big race, might have peaked in that Oaklawn race, maiden race, did get flow in that race, may get flow in this race. He's another Brissett horse. So just prefer the 4 over him, just because of the expected pace and the run style and those types of things. So really, that's the Peter Pan. Think the 4, We the People, most likely going to be the favorite, or second choice. I think he's going to be the favorite. Golden Glider, So on that horse, see how he gets bet, but as an alternative, set sail again needs to be higher than that 7-2 to get me interested. But 1 and 4 in race 9, the Peter Pan. And now we're going to go to the Bouquet, and this is a grade 3 on the turf. And this one's a little bit interesting to me because if you look at the plot of the one who's going to be a big favorite, it's dismal, but you got to be fair here. So let's go to the grid. This horse has only had one start in the US, and that's what it's being based on. But this horse, and we talked about class before, especially in these turf races, this horse has been competing at the highest levels with the better horses in Europe, and is a grade 1 winner. So, you know, this horse came into the Breeders' Cup, just didn't do it for whatever reason. Coming back, I don't know if they shipped the horse back or whatever. Didn't run, didn't have any kind of season, which is, you know, I guess they shipped him the. Yeah, okay, so they shipped it Chad Brown's. That's why they kept him. They kept him in the U.S. Probably figured that this horse would like, you know, firmer ground, but didn't seem to like it in the in the Breeders' Cup. And you can see all the other soft, you know, races where this horse ran, you know, good efforts have been on softer, heavy ground. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, if this horse can improve on that effort. It has been laid off. This horse is going to get bet, obviously. Just the connection, Brandt, Brown, Pratt. I don't know. I might want to take a shot against this horse in this race, just for the fact that you know, he's got to prove it on firm ground, and you know, just the kind of the plot based on the Breeders' Cup. It's worth taking a shot, and just based on that, you look at the number 4, who looks like kind of the horse on the plot that dominates, Plum Ali. Now, obviously, this horse isn't. He's coming off second off a layoff, and this horse, as a 3-year-old, I mean, it's not Europe, but this horse was competing very well, fairly well in grade 1, grade 3. You know, this grade 1 to grade 2, Grillo at 2, didn't kind of show the improvement expected at 3. Okay, but it's comebacks and his return race ran a really good race, really good number. Now it's coming back. Maybe there's still more upside in this horse. Horse looked like he changed tactics too, which I kind of like. 2 back, where he's more forward, and then, you know, on the lead, and then more forward in the other wing. So this horse was kind of more of a deep closer. And if you look at this plot dominates. So one of the things might be to put this horse on a lead, or the 3 will be on the lead, thinking there's no pace in the race either, and this one will stalk. So it'll be an interesting pace dynamic here. Don't know what the tactics are going to be, but the 4 could either go to the lead or stalk the 3. Yeah, I think that's a horse that can really kind of compete in this race against the 1, because he's got the back class, or I should say she's got the back class. The 1 will be over bet. Let's look at the 5. There's another square in this race, and I'll look at the 3 too. This kind of looks like another horse that kind of really did some really good racing early in the 3-year-old season, hasn't really come back. It's been a little iffy. You know, the 2 return races, you know, this year, well, you know, actually only 1 race this year. Then kind of layoff. Gonna have to see it on that one. 3 was the other horse I thought might be forward in the race, a little bit class challenged here, but a horse that you know, it's got some upside, and it probably more than likely will be forwardly placed, because you can see it comes out of some sprints in here. So not sure about this one, but to me, you know, the only one really has a chance, if this one runs back to that European form, it will be the number 4, Plum Ali, and worth a shot at what should be a pretty generous price. Let me look at the 2, because that's the other Chad Brown horse. Sometimes, you know, this is a horse that, yeah, it was running really well, probably like grade 2, grade 3 level in Europe. Pratt was on this horse. Obviously, had a maybe had a choice or didn't have a choice, but this horse had run in Arlington and the Beverly D, which is a grade 1 in the US, ran okay. So I don't know, he might be another alternative if you, again, if we think we can beat the 1 here, he may be another alternative to 2 and the 4, because the 1 will get hammered. So we'll look at the board and play accordingly. So that's all the stakes preview at Belmont today from OptixEQ. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Doyle, and please check out our website, OptixEQ.com. You want to learn more about the plot and all the rest. You go to our info page there, and there's lots of good stuff, videos and everything. So thanks for joining us, and good luck at the races.